Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about my Heckler Koch Mk23. After I uploaded a few shooting videos of this gun last fall, I got several responses saying that I should do a review video about it, so I thought that was a good idea. It's definitely a cool gun. Not maybe the most unique or weird that I've ever reviewed, but it's not one you see every day either. And being an HK fanboy, I think there should always be more HK videos out there. There aren't tons of decent reviews about this gun anyway, so I'm not going to get too much into the history of the gun because, like I said, it's not too obscure really. You can go on HK Pro forums, there's a lot of good information there, Wikipedia articles, things like that. But to summarize, this gun was designed in the mid-1990s for the U.S. SOCOM, Special Operations Command, and the driving spec behind it was absolute durability, rugged reliability. They had been spooked a little bit before by the Beretta M9 platform that they had adopted a few years earlier. You know, there had been slide breakages and some other things. So what they wanted was something that could go to the apocalypse and back, and that's what they got. That's what they told HK they wanted. Because it was designed to be used by all of the different special forces, so you sort of had this too many chefs in the kitchen sort of scenario going on, designed by committee, and you ended up getting almost two guns in one in a way because you have different controls back here, and I'll talk about that when I get into the controls section. But the main driving factor behind this was reliability. It was based on the USP platform. The USP-40 was designed a couple years before that, only they just beefed it up completely everywhere that they could. They made it stronger, better, harder, faster, all of that. They went through extensive torture testing, 30,000 rounds of plus P plus ammo without breakages, without stopping. It was originally going to have a compensator, but they opted instead to do a dual recoil spring, kind of like the USP has, just beefed up again. High accuracy standard, I believe it had to be an inch at 25 meters. Pretty darn good for a polymer combat gun. And you ended up with a gun that wasn't designed by the end user. It was designed based on a spec sheet that was crafted in a boardroom somewhere. So you get this sort of monstrous Frankenstein gun that today is sort of the object of ridicule by a lot of people. Common joke you hear is that it's the only crew-served handgun, which, I don't know, I think that joke's a little bit overstated and a little bit worn out, but I'll get into that too about the size. It is a large gun, it is heavy, and I think the most convincing consensus on the internet is that these were not really preferred by any operators out in the field. Most people thought it was too big and too unwieldy, sort of. They opted instead for SIGs and other things. Some people will swear up and down that their best buddy in the SEALs definitely loved this gun, but it's just, I don't think that was very common. So they weren't very popular among the military. They are still made today, though, for the civilian market. Every once in a while, HK says that they're going to stop making them, and everyone freaks out and thinks that they're discontinuing the line, but it seems like then a year or two later they'll release some more. So it is a continuous seller for them, it seems like. This one has the early maritime finish. You might notice it's kind of shiny black. Nowadays they make it with the hostile environment finish. You'll see here the AB date code means it's sort of an earlier one. I think they stopped in 2004. With this maritime finish. I kind of like that a little bit better. I intentionally sought that out because it's just a little bit more original. And then there are also different, as far as collectability goes, and different variations, different slide markings. This one says Mk23 in all caps, and then there's some other one. There's the most valuable ones say US SOCOM on them. There are a few other ones too. So I'll start off talking about the size and weight of the gun, which is probably the elephant in the room, literally almost. It's definitely a large gun. I think that people overstate its largeness a little bit, though. It weighs 37.5 ounces, which is heavy for a polymer, sure, but it holds 12 rounds of 45 ACP, and it's not even as heavy as a 1911, an all-steel gun. So is it actually that heavy? Maybe compared to like a Glock 19 or something, but in the world of guns, 37.5 ounces is not that heavy. The slide is definitely very long. It's got that 6-inch barrel to help with the match-grade accuracy. I pulled out my 1911 to compare. This is a Colt National Match from the 60s. Since they're both 45s, I thought that would be a good comparison. So you can see here, it is a larger gun than the 1911, but it's not ridiculously so. And then there to compare the barrels, sort of. I mean, you can see that, yeah, it's bigger, but this isn't Desert Eagle size, is what I'm trying to say. It's definitely taller, and that's one of the impressions you get when you're holding it. And I'll talk about that in ergonomics, that it's very high up in your hand. So it's wider too, being double stacked. And I have my Glock 17 for another size comparison. So definitely bigger, not really a fair comparison, being as this was a 45 ACP double stack versus a 19 millimeter. But just to give you sort of, there's that bore axis though. It's pretty high up, and I know that's a popular thing on the internet these days, is bore axis. I personally think that it can be overcome through good grip and training and things like that, but there's no denying that the bore is pretty high up there. The barrel sits pretty high. And do the Beretta 92 for another size comparison. You can see there, it is bigger, of course, being a large 45, but laughably bigger. So big that you just can't help but laugh. Not really, in my opinion. Show you the back there too. Really isn't that much thicker. So if you can handle a Beretta 92, probably isn't too much of a stretch to handle one of these. And then finally, the gun that sort of replaced it in most people's eyes is the USP 45 Tactical, which is one of my favorites. It's my first handgun. And you can definitely see the family resemblance. A lot of the same design elements and design language, controls, things like that. But this is by far smaller. Honestly, I do tend to recommend this over the Mark 23. It's cheaper, shoots just as well. Actually, the trigger I like better. I think it's an improved design overall, but you know, you can't beat this for cool factor. It's an icon. So there's the size comparisons for you. So, you know, I keep talking about referencing the size, and in my opinion, is it too big? It's too big, yes, for concealed carry, obviously, and for the purpose it was designed for operators carrying out in the field. I think it was definitely too big for that. But is it too big for you as a civilian Joe Schmo who wants to take it to the range? Absolutely not. Is it too big for home defense? Nope. It is just not that big. And the dimension that really matters for that, in my opinion, is the grip. And the grip is not that much bigger than the USP 45, which, yeah, it kind of has a biggish grip, but it's just not that large. My hands are medium-sized, I would say, and I have no problems holding it. I think there's sort of an optical illusion going on with this giant oversized trigger guard, the thick slide and the long slide, that just makes it look way more unwieldy than it is, but it's just not that bad. You can hold it, you can shoot it, and for most purposes that don't include carrying it, I think it's a fine size. I don't really see any problem with the size of it. And like I said, the weight, 37.5 ounces. If you can't lift that, I don't know what to tell you. It's not that heavy in the world of guns. So I'll talk about the ergonomics and the controls. Like I mentioned earlier, this was designed by committee because the Army, they wanted basically a 1911. They wanted cocked and locked capability. So right now it's cocked, and I just locked it. Safety is on. It will not fall. And they wanted to be able to turn off the safety and be ready to go, and not have to worry about this accidentally decocking the gun or putting it onto safe or anything like that. They just wanted something just like their 1911, and they got that, cocked and locked. Navy and the Air Force, though, they wanted a traditional double action gun which had decocker and double action pull, sort of like what the SIG and the M9 and some other designs had. So that's why you end up getting two guns in one. You get a 1911 and a traditional double action with two different controls, and it's kind of confusing possibly, and it's definitely not ideal, I think. But again, like I said, this was designed by committee, so you end up with this mixture of controls back here, cocked and locked and decocker. I don't really think the decocker is a better design than the SIGs, though. The lever is pretty flat and flush up against the gun. It's not very easy to get a good grab on it. So when you let it down, it always feels like it's kind of going to slip out of your finger. It does let you lower it like that, though, which is nice. It doesn't just slam the hammer forward like on the USP, but I don't think this is as better design than the SIG. It just doesn't really, it's hard to kind of hit with your thumb, I think, and it feels a little bit rough too. Safety's fine. It's ambidextrous also. Mag release is the classic HK style, the paddle mag release, which I will always defend to the death of me. I think it's better than the button release on 1911s and such, but I'll talk about that in another video. This is made out of steel, so it's a little bit more durable than the USP's plastic. Again, like I said, 12-round mag. This is actually my 10-rounder, I guess, but these came out during the assault weapons ban, so they originally only came with 10-round mags. Large trigger guard for gloved use. It's got some stippling there, or some serrations for if you put your finger out there, which is kind of hard to do considering how large that trigger guard is. It also came, of course, with the laser aiming module unit, which is this giant thing that hangs off the end. Don't have one of those. They're extremely expensive. Not exactly worth it for me. Threaded barrel, which is the opposite thread pitch of the USP. So whenever I want to use my Tyrant 45, I have to switch the piston back here because it screws on the opposite direction. And I'd put it on, but I have it set up for the USP right now. These sights, I believe, were aftermarket night sights, possibly installed by the previous owner. They work well, though. I think it's normally a 3-dot sight picture. And there's the front sight. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, front sight's just a dot. Kind of flashes in there. Anyway, so those are the controls and the features of the gun. Nice big slide serrations back here. Show you the takedown real fast. Oh, this is a slide stop lever, obviously. Didn't show that. So when the slide comes back, this is what you hit. It's nice and big. I always like that about the USPs too. It's impossible to miss it. It sticks out really nicely. Show you takedown procedure. Drop the mag. And just like the USP that it's based on, you just push this back until you can push this lever out, and then you pull it out. Off comes the slide. You can see the rails are not overly long, but doesn't hurt accuracy. Like I said, it's about an inch at 25 meters, which is astonishing for a combat gun. Very heavy duty plastics in here. And then here's the slide, which if you've ever seen the inside of a USP, it looks familiar. It's using the same dual recoil spring, only it's significantly beefier. The spring is stronger. Just the whole, everything in here is like a USP on steroids. It's just stronger, beefier, better, more reliable. Not that a USP can really get more reliable, but so you have this to soak up some recoil too. Lets you use plus P plus loads, 45 super. Take the barrel out. Kind of stuck there. It's got an O-ring barrel, which is supposed to improve accuracy. I'm sure it's marginal at best, whatever it does. I think people, I mean, it's probably one of those things where you only see it if you're bench resting at 50 yards or something. A lot of wear to the barrel. This is one thing that I'll complain about. It doesn't take a lot of rounds to happen, but just out of overshooting it, you start to wear off the finish on the chamber and the barrel. It's a good way to tell if a gun has been shot much. It doesn't take tons and tons of rounds to wear it down like this. So it kind of looks ugly. It kind of looks like, I mean, it is character, of course, but if you're prissy about this sort of thing, it would definitely bother you. I don't really care. It's character, and it's sort of a macho gun anyway. So what's a little bit of wear there? But and then reassembly, of course, is opposite of disassembly. Not much to see in here. Just a very heavyweight slide. So now let's put it back together. I'll tell you about the shooting impressions. It shoots great. It's very soft. You would expect that with given the heavy weight, 37.5 ounces. The dual recoil spring setup also helps, of course. High bore axis, so there is a lot of muzzle flip. And I know I was saying earlier that you can overcome that with training, but in this gun it really is just, it's pretty hard to do because there's so much, it's not just the bore axis, but there's so much reciprocating mass in this heavy slide that you definitely feel it kind of going backwards. You can reduce that a little bit by using a suppressor, which, like I said, I have that, and I do like shooting with it. With that, it makes it even softer shooting. It's almost like shooting marshmallows out of a gun made of pillows or something. I mean, it's so soft shooting at that point. But accuracy is also good. I actually don't shoot this as well as my USPs for whatever reason. Still haven't really figured that out. USPs, for some reason, whatever reason, I just pick them up and I'm instantly like perfectly accurate with them. It's why I'm such a huge fan of the platform. But this gun, I always have to try a little bit harder. I'll show you the trigger. First, I'll decock it and show you double action. People might say the trigger is bad, but I think it's not bad at all. I think it's just heavy. So, double action pull is not that long. It's very heavy. My scale doesn't even go up this high. It's probably, I don't know, 14 or 16 pounds or something like that. But it's extremely smooth. It's just harder to find a smoother trigger than that. So it actually feels pretty good in spite of the weight. Then single action is also pretty heavy. But watch this break. Break is extremely good for a polymer combat gun. A little bit of over travel after the trigger breaks. But there just really isn't much movement at all. And then, yes, it's heavy, but with a break like that, it's hard to complain about the trigger, in my opinion. The trigger is also kind of wide. It's got some serrations there, too, to help soak up some of that pressure, I guess, and make it feel a little bit lighter than it is. But it does not feel light. It's a heavy trigger for sure. But like I said, for some reason, I just don't shoot it as well as the USPs. It is an extremely accurate gun. And once I warm up to it, I do shoot it better. And when shooting it, that's one sensation that you really get, is that the gun sits up really high. I mean, I've talked about the bore axis, but you just really feel it when you're holding it. You're like, oh wow, that's really towering up above my hand. And then obviously reliability is perfect. Never had a single hitch with it. Shooting all sorts of different 45s and steel case, brass case, whatever. Shoots everything. So criticisms, I don't really have a lot. I mean, it is what it is. It's obviously big and heavy, and it's too heavy for carrying and things like that, but I don't think it's really for that anymore. It was originally, but now it's more of a home defense gun, range gun, novelty. I mean, it's obviously sort of got the whole, I don't know, it's in some video games. I don't really know what they are, but, you know, it's got that whole thing going on, and it's cool for that. But for just a home defense gun, it's great, I think. I mean, it's not that big. The grip feels fine. Barrel wear might be a little bit annoying if you're perfectionist about things like that. It isn't really very aesthetic wear, I guess. Maybe could be the problem, like the stuff over here on the side especially. It just doesn't really look good, but you know, it just looks like it's worn in. And that's what this gun is for. So, not a big deal there. But otherwise, not a whole lot of criticisms really. The trigger's heavy and it would be nice to lighten it up, but whatever. You need that for the supreme reliability and durability of the gun. So in conclusion, like I've said, it's really not as humongous as people say. The grip is fine, I think. So as far as like a range gun goes, or a home defense type of gun, go ahead and get one of these. They're good guns. They're incredibly reliable. You know, you might need to have at least medium-sized hands like I do to get around the grip, but it's just not as big and honking as people act like it is on the internet. Prices on these are a little bit down lately. It seems like you used to be you couldn't find one for under about $2,000, and now you can find them for maybe $1,500, $1,600 if they don't have the box, and new they go for about $18, something like that with the box. So not as expensive as they used to be. Still expensive for sure, but it's a legend, and it's a good shooter. I would not recommend it necessarily over the USP Tactical, which, like I said, I just shoot better. I think it's just a little bit more improved design. It only has this one control back here, which works great. I think I prefer the sights, and the grip is a smidge smaller, so it just feels a little bit better. But you know, you can't go wrong with either. So the Mark 23 is a cool gun, and I like it a lot, as I'm required to do by being an HK fanboy. But I think you'd like it too if you try one out. Might be surprised at just how well you're able to handle it, despite all the internet jokes about how humongous it is. So you should give it a chance. And I know it's been a while since I've put out any videos. I'm going to try to get back into it. I've got a huge backlog. Got some pretty cool stuff. So please subscribe or keep watching or doing whatever. But appreciate you guys checking me out and watching my videos. So thanks for watching. This is a Heckler & Koch Mark 23.